September 22nd, 8:45 a.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby, number 3. Good morning, Mr. Wright. Good morning, Ellen. I see you're still wearing your wedding gown, and I will continue to wear it until our marriage is saved. Oh, Soren! Do you think he came to see how she's holding up? Soren, my love, you came all the way to the courthouse just to see me? Oh, Soren, I don't know what to say. Blueprints. Huh? The engine blueprints. I can't find them. Do you know where they are? Oh, they're in your room. Third shelf from the bottom on the right-hand side. Ah, I see. He's leaving already? Don't tell me he came just to ask about some stupid blueprints. Is he really that cold of a person? Or is that just how he comes off, I wonder? What about me, Soren? Ellen, he's back. Come home soon. I'm lost without you. Later. Looks like showing your vulnerabilities is the fastest way to capture a woman's heart. You should take notes on this, Nick. Please leave me out of this. Anyway, it looks like Soren isn't big on words, but it's clear that he cares about Ellen. Knowing that, I actually feel kind of relieved. Mr. Wright, I just absolutely can't be found guilty, you hear? Don't worry. I'm gonna do everything I can to prove your innocence. Thank you, Mr. Wright. The trial's about to start, sir. Edgeworth. Knowing him, he's not gonna yield an inch. So I've just gotta fight with everything I've got and save Ellen. September 22nd, 9 a.m. District Court. Courtroom number 6. All rise. Court is now in session for the trial of Ellen Wyatt. The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution has been ready for a while, Your Honor. Seeing so many familiar faces gathered together like this, I feel as though I am at a grand reunion. Makes me want to go out for dinner and a drink and reminisce with all of you. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I was dying for a real burger the whole time I was away. We could make it a welcome back party for Maya. How about it, Edgeworth? I have no intention of cavorting with my enemies. Now then, Your Honor, let us start this trial at once. Oh, still not one for lighthearted banter, are you, Mr. Edgeworth? Jokes and good humor are beyond worthless in a court of law. Guess we'll just have to have the party without him then. However, were it after the conclusion of this trial, I might consider joining you for your little welcome back party. I certainly wouldn't mind an invite at the very least. He's still as emotionally constipated as ever, I see. Now then, Mr. Edgeworth, if you could please go over the details of his case for us. The victim was Dumas Gloomsbury, a servant in the Sprocket household. He was in attendance at the wedding reception that occurred from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Mr. Gloomsbury apparently felt some animosity toward Ellen Wyatt, and so, a bit after the reception ended at 10 p.m., he assaulted Miss Wyatt with the intent to kill her. The defendant fought back and ended up killing Mr. Gloomsbury. In other words, it was justified self-defense, correct? If that's the case, then the defendant might not be criminally responsible. He's right. Worst case scenario, I could go for self-defense to avoid the criminal charge. I wonder how Edgeworth plans to counter that, though. The prosecution's first witness will make my view on the matter clear, Your Honor. Very well. Bailiff, please bring in the first witness. It's Emma. No doubt about it. Please state your name and occupation, witness.
Emma Skye, forensic investigator. And I'd just like to say, sir, that being in the same courtroom as you is a great honor.
Oh, that's right. You're a fan of Edgeworth's, aren't you, Emma?
We're good friends and all, Mr. Wright. But just this once, I intend to faithfully and fully testify for the prosecution. And I do mean that wholeheartedly.
I expect no less from you.
Yes, sir. I'm going to do my very best. Looks like you lost the popularity contest to Mr. Edgeworth, Nick.
Nah, I really could care less. Besides, she'll see who's the better lawyer once I win this trial.
Yeah, maybe then you'll actually really care less.
Now, Detective Skye, if you please.
Witness testimony. Rundown of the case. The murder weapon was a clock called the timekeeper. The victim was hit with it from behind. He fell over, right into the lantern. The defendant was spotted then, standing in front of the body holding the murder weapon. The victim was struck twice, by the way.
He was struck twice?
That's right. There's no mistake about it. The first blow was to the back of the victim's head. It was hard enough to knock him unconscious. Yet, despite the fact that he had been immobilized by the first blow, the defendant delivered a second fatal blow to the side of the victim's head.
Which means what exactly? I figured it would go right over your head. Let's put it this way. By striking the victim a second time, the defendant killed her last chance to escape from any criminal wrongdoing. She did? But how, Mr. Edgeworth? The defendant may have been fighting back because she was being attacked. However, she then went on to deliver a fatal blow to a man who was already fully unconscious.
Nick, is he saying what I think he is?
I don't feel so well. And thus, Mr. Wright, has justified self-defense been removed from the table. The prosecution intends to prove that the defendant killed the victim with murderous intent. Allow me to belatedly submit the victim's autopsy report.
So that's why he was acting so smug. Well, more smug than usual. It's fine, right? It's not like we were going to plead self-defense anyway, right?
Right. But now the judge has a negative impression on Ellen. He may not get to prosecute much anymore, but he definitely hasn't lost his touch. Autopsy report added. Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
Well, just like old times, I guess. The murder weapon was a clock called the timekeeper. The victim was hit with it from behind and he fell over right into the lantern.
Yeah, but how do I know that's actually a lie, you know?
Objection!
Detective Skye, I'm afraid I have to apologize in advance.
For what?
For embarrassing you in front of your idol.
What do you mean?
If you take a look at this photo of the crime scene, you'll see that the victim is lying on his back. But if the victim had been hit from behind as you claim, then he should have fallen over in the lantern face down. It's not enough to simply take someone's side, Detective Skye, even if it is Mr. Edgeworth. That does appear to be a flaw in Detective Skye's testimony.
Hold it. Mr. Wright, if you think I'm going to just back right down, then you're sadly mistaken.
Eva's unusually fired up today.
Don't forget, she's in front of her hero, Nick. If the Steel Samurai came to watch this trial, I want to do my absolute best, too. Listen, Mr. Wright, It's entirely possible that the defendant moved the victim's body after he fell over. In that case, there wouldn't be any contradiction, right?
Indeed. That was an excellent counter-argument, Detective.
You can count on me, sir. So what do you have to say to that, Mr. Wright?
Is it possible that the victim's body was moved after he fell into the lantern? No.
Sorry, Detective, but there's no way the victim's body was moved after his death. Oh, really? What makes you so sure? One look at this here, and it should become obvious.
Take that!
The rubble on the body. Those broken bits of the lantern? Yes, if the body had been moved after the fact, these fragments wouldn't have fallen off of it. But as you can clearly see, they're lying perfectly undisturbed on top of the body. This means that the victim must have been lying face up from before the lantern even broke. You're right. But wait a minute, if that's true, then when was the victim killed? I mean, the lantern was still whole during the reception, right?
Right, which means we've just overturned a major assumption about this case. If the victim was already dead before the lantern was even broken, then the body must have been inside the lantern since before the reception started. In other words, the defense asserts that the victim was killed before the wedding reception.
What?
In short, when Miss Wyatt was seen standing in front of the body after the reception, it wasn't the moment just after the murder was committed. It was the moment she happened to discover the body, just as Miss Wyatt claims. Ah!
Objection!
Whether the act was committed before or after the reception is entirely inconsequential. After all, it was the defendant who prepared the reception hall for the event in question. Therefore, when the murder occurred, changes nothing with regard to her guilt. She could have killed the victim before the reception, as you claim, and then tried to hide his body in the lantern after the event ended.
Objection!
Sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. I mean, where would the body have been hidden during the reception in your scenario?
That's...
Even you have to admit, Mr. Edgeworth, that this has opened up a new possibility.
Do explain, Mr. Wright.
Well, if Miss Wyatt didn't commit the crime in the reception hall, then that means someone somewhere put the victim's body in the lantern.
I suppose that makes sense. A dead body couldn't have put itself in there.
Exactly, Your Honor. In other words, if the murder actually occurred before the reception, it opened up the possibility that he was killed somewhere else. If the body was hidden inside the lantern, then it's possible that the body was moved along with it from somewhere else. Oh, you're right.
You can run that mouth of yours all you want. But do you have any evidence to support what's coming out of it, Mr. Wright?
Of course I do. I think the answer lies in that piece of evidence, and in something that was left at the crime scene that will point us to where the victim was really killed.
Very well, Mr. Wright, in that case,
what proves that the lantern and the body were moved from somewhere else? We need to show the photo of the victim again.
Take that!
The photo of the victim again? Yes. I'd like the court to focus on this thing right here. The flower petal. Right here.
Take that!
Flower petals, Mr. Wright? These petals are from a kind of flower that were not present in the reception hall. This means they must have gotten into the lantern when it was somewhere else.
And just where do you propose this somewhere else to be, Mr. Wright?
I propose that this piece of evidence will tell us where the flower petals came from. In the hold.
Take that!
Please take a look at the flowers in this picture of the hold. Notice how their petals are of the same shape as the petals in the crime scene photo.
Yes, I see.
They do look to be from the same kind of flower.
Objection!
Is that really all you've got? A flower is a flower is a flower. They're all the same. I would hardly call what you presented compelling evidence.
I'm afraid I couldn't disagree with you more, Mr. Edgeworth. I gave a flower of this type to my lovely wife once when we were young, so I can assure you that this is very meaningful and compelling evidence indeed. The soundness of my judgment in this matter is backed by nothing less than pure love.
But, Your Honor...
Let it go, Mr. Edgeworth. It's clear you don't know much about flowers. It's not like you have anyone you'd actually give any to after all, but maybe you should study up on them just in case the opportunity presents itself.
This from the man who only knows the names of 3 types of flowers.
That's hardly relevant to the case at hand. The defense asserts that it's highly probable that the victim was killed in the hold, if the body was then placed in the lantern and moved to the reception hall for some reason. It would completely destroy the prosecution's case. Then you mean the body was... Yes, the victim's body was... inside the lantern during the entire beautiful wedding reception, while the defendant and her betrothed were celebrating their love.
What? Objection!
Now what? Your smooth talk might work on His Honor, but it won't work on me. What are you talking about now? Take another look at all the evidence and you'll soon see what I mean. I wish you would just tell me already. Detective Sky, I'm sure you've already figured out what I'm talking about, correct?
Of course, sir. Mr. Wright is the only one here who hasn't. Why don't you leave this to me, Mr. Edgeworth?
Very well, let's see what you can do. Detective Sky, please give your testimony to this court.
Witness testimony. The prosecution's rebuttal. The victim could not have been killed before the reception. The autopsy report states that the estimated time of death was after the reception. And that estimated time of death is correct. There's no way it could be wrong. It's clear Mr. Bloomsbury was killed after the reception, and that completely contradicts your claim.
I guess so. Tell me you took at least a cursory glance at the autopsy report, Mr. Wright. It appears you've grown rusty since our last outing. Might I suggest you go back and brush up on the basics? Sure, though I must say you're as cocky as ever, Mr. Edgeworth. I beg your pardon.
What are you trying to say, Mr. Wright?
I'm just saying that I'll go back to basics if that's what Mr. Edgeworth wants. I'll prove how badly he's underestimated me with a good old-fashioned cross-examination. Very well, let's see you put your money where your mouth is, Mr. Wright. With how this is gonna go, this won't take long.
The victim could not have been killed before the reception. The autopsy report states that the estimated time of death was after the reception. And that estimated time of death is correct. There's no way it could be wrong.
I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
Objection!
I admit that the estimated time of death does contradict my theory.
Finally, and that means your theory that the victim was killed before the reception
is still entirely plausible.
What makes you think that?
The killer could have falsified the time of death by using a certain item in the reception hall. Please take a look at this.
And what is that contraption, Mr. Wright?
It's a fog machine, Your Honor, used to create a special romantic atmosphere in the hall.
And this machine could have been used to falsify the time of death?
Yes, Your Honor, because this machine uses dry ice to perform its magic.
Dry ice?
Ah, yes, the super cold stuff commonly used to make theatrical fog, right? I see. So your claim is that the dry ice was used to keep the body cold?
Oh, in that case, I guess the victim could have been killed before the reception.
Order! Order in the court! Well, Mr. Edgeworth, what do you have to say about this development? That the victim was killed in the hall before the wedding reception? The prosecution acknowledges the possibility of his claim. Now we're getting somewhere. The prosecution would also like to thank you, Mr. Wright. Huh? For what? I didn't know how a certain piece of evidence fit into this case, but now thanks to you, I do. What piece of evidence? To get into the hold, one needs a key card, like this one. And here, we have a record of those who enter the hold with such key cards. The times aren't specified, but these are the last 3 entries on the day of the murder. And as you can see, the last person to enter the hold that day was the defendant. What? So the one who moved the body out of the hold must have been... That's right. It was none other than the defendant. Hold entry record added. Great.
Hey, Nick, take a look at this entry record. There are a couple of other names on here besides Ellen.
Hey, you're right. According to the entry record, Mr. Edgeworth, Pierce Nicati had also gone into the hold. Isn't it possible that he could have been the culprit?
Objection!
Sorry, but Mr. Nicati was escorting a few of the guests at the time. I'm sure they would be happy to testify to that fact if you like. Think me cocky all you like, Mr. Wright, but my confidence is rarely misplaced. Now then, it's probably safe to assume that after killing the victim in the hold, the defendant moved his body to the hole in order to dispose of it discreetly. What do you mean by discreetly? The defendant volunteered to take care of the reception's cleanup personally. That means she would have had a chance to dispose of anything in the way she wanted, including taking the lantern off the airship without raising any suspicion. Don't tell me you didn't know about Miss Wyatt volunteering for cleanup duty, Mr. Wright.
For my last task as a servant of the Sprocket household, I offered to take on the preparation and cleanup of the reception banquet.
I see.
Yeah!
Look at you, sweating buckets like a rookie, even after all these years. Thank you for proving that the only person who could have killed the victim in the hold is... Ellen Wyatt. Yeah!
Great job, Phoenix. Now we're back to square one.
Perhaps you should ask Miss Sykes for some help in reviewing defense for dummies.
Way to go, sir. You've got Mr. Ryan in a cold sweat.
I wonder if it may be the promise of seeing that miserable look on his face is what brought me back to court today. It certainly made all of my stress and woes as chief prosecutor just melt away.
I guess he had a lot of stress built up.
I'll give him something to stress over before we're through today. Your Honor, the prosecution asks that you render your verdict at this time, before that man over there tries to throw the court into chaos with his meaningless bluffs. I see, Mr. Wright. Are there any last meaningful bluffs you'd like to present to this court? Why does he have to assume it'll be a bluff?
Nick, hurry up and throw a good one out there.
I will. Well, all right then. Let's see. I've got it. How do you know it was Miss Wyatt who used her keycard? After all, if it turns out that somebody else used her card, it would mean Miss Wyatt didn't do it. Interesting. And are you able to prove this bluff to be true? I assure you I'm not bluffing, Your Honor. Well, now what?
Wait a minute, Nick. I can think of a certain somebody who might have used Ellen's keycard.
You can?
Remember? The one who was sneaking around the hold, in spite of not being a family member?
Oh, that's right. Your Honor, the defense would like to call a certain witness to the stand. I need the testimony of this person who may have entered the hold with Miss Wyatt's card, Larry Butz.
Take that! That's your witness? Are you saying that numbskull was on the airship?
He never breathed a word about that to me. That's not surprising because Mr. Nicati told him to keep quiet about it. But Mr. Butz himself admitted it to me. He claimed to have found a way to sneak into the Flying Chapel's hold to see Miss Wyatt. This photo he took and gave to me is proof. Then was it he who moved the lantern with the body inside of the reception hall? You know as well as I that with him anything is possible, and this is one possibility we should definitely look into. I can't believe this. What in the world is he doing mixed up in this? Come on, Mr. Edgeworth. Remember what we've been saying since elementary school. When something smells, it's usually the butts. Exactly.
Yeah, that Larry. He'll pay for this.
Well, if you want to extract your payment now, he's right up there in the gallery. Yikes! Bailiff, seize the witness before he makes a run for it. No! Why does this stuff always happen to me? Sorry, Larry, but you brought this on yourself. Let us break for a 15-minute recess. I ask that both sides prepare for the next witness's testimony during this time. God damn it, Larry. September 22nd, District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. They need to speed this up.
Wow, it's been a while since I've had this much fun and excitement. A face-off against Mr. Edgeworth. A harrowing tightrope walk for the defense.
Phew, I'm exhausted already.
Boss?
I'm here for moral support. Athena, are you all done practicing for Trucy's magic show?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I sorta ran away. But that's because she was putting my life in danger, I tell you.
I see. I think I'll need to have a one-on-one with her. You're really athletic and fit, Athena, so Trucy probably thinks she can run you rag.
That may be true, which is why not even Trucy can keep up with me when I run at full speed.
Ha! Looks like you spoke too soon, Athena.
Never underestimate the resourcefulness of a great magician. Huh? Magical girl Phoenix Wright is on the scene.
No!
Now, Athena, it's time to practice human combustion magic. Come on, douse yourself in this gasoline. But don't worry, it's a magic trick after all. It's perfectly safe.
Run away! Yes, you're using the Joestar secret technique.
Hey, you're not getting off that easily.
Yep, the Joestar secret technique at work.
They get along so well, don't they? It reminds me of the good old days. You, me, and Pearlie. Oh, and Detective Gumshoe. Can't forget him.
He needs to come back in AA7.
We had all kinds of fun at the crime scenes back then, remember?
Leaving me to do all the serious investigating, as I recall. Court will soon be back in session, Mr. Wright. Right, thank you.
So Larry's the next witness, right? I can't wait to see what happens.
Sadly, I can already imagine it. September 22nd, District Court, Courtroom number 6. Court will now reconvene.
Nick, Edgy, the two of you are gonna hate me out to dry, aren't you?
No, not the both of us. Just Mr. Wright.
Nick, how could you?
I don't really think he did it, of course, but I've got to use whatever leads I can. Mr. Butz, there's a possibility you moved the lantern then add the dead body in. So if you want to clear yourself of any suspicion, all you have to do is testify. Now then, your testimony, please, witness. Witness testimony. Nick is a jerkface.
Nick, you big fat stinking jerk. How could you doubt your best bud? We've known each other since elementary school.
Well, get this, pal. Our friendship's over. That's a testimony? That's pathetic. Well, go ahead, Mr. Wright. He's all yours. Why me? You're the one who called him to the stand, so he's your responsibility. Thanks, old chum.
Can any of you show me a little respect? Even just a shred?
You may cross-examine the witness, Mr. Wright. I would if there were any testimony to cross-examine. Thankfully, there's plenty. Don't worry, there is.
Nick, you big fat stinking jerk! How could you doubt your best bud? We've known each other since elementary school.
Well, get this, pal. Our friendship's over.
Hold it!
Larry, listen to me.
Shut up! I'm not talking to you anymore.
This is getting us nowhere.
Well, I guess about all I can do is try to get some kind of statement out of him somehow. Good luck.
Nick, you big fat stinking jerk. Come on, Larry. Can't you please give me something real to work with? Don't think I don't know about your tricks. If I say something careless, you're gonna shove some evidence at me with a loud objection and a super smug look on your face. Yeah, well, that is my job. And if I get found guilty, how are you gonna take responsibility for what you've done? Why should I take responsibility for just doing my job? You heartless jerk, don't you have any compassion for me? How can you doubt your best bud? We've known each other since elementary school. I'm sorry, Mr. Butz, but if it wasn't Mrs. Wyatt that entered the hole with that card, then you're the most likely suspect. Nick, are you seriously doubting the innocence of your old childhood friend? Well, technically, yes. But it isn't personal, I assure you. Ugh. A true friend would have believed in me, no matter what. Can't you see my tears? Don't they mean anything to you? Nick! You don't really think you can cry your way out of this, do you? Okay, fine. In that case... Come off it, Larry. If you don't quit fooling around and start testifying, Miss Wyatt will be found guilty. For real? If no new information comes out of this cross-examination, then yes, Mr. Butz, for real. Not that I would have a problem with that myself. Larry, just tell us the truth already. Did you or didn't you go into the hole and move a lantern up to the reception hall? I never moved any bull lantern, I tell ya. Bull lantern? What? Did I say something weird? You told me that you didn't attend the wedding reception. Can you believe they told me only family and relatives could attend? They wouldn't even let me into the reception hall. Yeah, so what? Then that's odd. No one in this courtroom ever mentioned the sex of the lantern that was moved. So how could you know that it was a bull lantern? You didn't have to actually go to the reception to know that. Anyone can tell there were two peg of bulls by looking at the Flying Chapel's pamphlet. All I can tell right now is that there's a strong scent of bull in the air in here. Please add that last statement to your testimony, Mr. Butz. Anyone could tell there were two peg of bulls by looking at the Flying Chapel's pamphlet. Is that right? Objection! I don't think so. I want you to take a look at this, Mr. Butz. Because unfortunately for you, the pamphlet clearly shows a pega cow and a pega bull in their example diagram on the reception hall. Huh? But on that day, instead of putting a pega cow and pega bull out for the bride and groom, there were two male pega bulls on display. Yet somehow you knew there were two pega bulls in the reception hall that day. There's only one way you'd know something like that, Larry. It was you who moved the pega bull to the reception hall, wasn't it? Ah! No! Larry, you didn't! Mr. Butz, did you move the lantern containing the victim's body to the reception hall? That's what it looks like. What? Hold it! Wait, Nick! You don't think I'm the murderer, do ya? Maybe you and Mr. Bloomsbury were fighting over Miss Wyatt and you ended up killing her. Maya! Not you too! Look, I did sneak into the reception, but that's as far as it went. You know me, I wouldn't hurt a fly. You snuck in the reception? Yeah, sure, but some of the Sprocket men caught and locked me up in one of the cabins. It was pretty awful, actually. That's when I made the drawing on that pterodactyl I showed you, Nick. Ixnay on the aerodactyl today, Larry. Mr. Wright, not even you would take this farce that far, would you? We are talking about Larry. What do I do? Do I accuse Larry of being the true culprit? No! No, you're right, Mr. Edgeworth. Mr. Butz didn't have a reason to kill Mr. Bloomsbury. He might have had an imaginary reason to kill Soren Sprocket, sure, but not Mr. Bloomsbury. After all, he did steal Mr. Sprocket's bride and try to elope with her. Just because I try to steal somebody's bride doesn't make me a murderer. I believe you, Larry, and I don't think you killed anybody either. You would never do anything like that. Nick, old buddy, old pal. I knew you'd come through for me. Funny, That considering your sworn testimony just now that we were through. Mr. Butz, it's time you told this court the whole truth. Understood?
Witness testimony. Moving the lantern. It's just like Nick said. I'm the one who moved the lantern. I was poking around the reception hall before the main event and saw a lantern was broken. There was a note on it that said, exchange with the one in the hole, Ellen. So I decided to do Ellie a favor.
So you switched the lanterns before the reception, did you? And that means the victim really was killed before the reception.
Broken lantern updated in the court record.
It would appear that Mr. Butz completely fell for the defendant's scheme.
Scheme? What scheme?
This note from the defendant, exchange with the one in the hold, Ellen. Mr. Butz moved the lantern with the body in it up to the reception hall because of this note, and thus he has become a suspect in Mr. Gloomsbury's murder.
That second lantern did feel pretty heavy, but I never would have thought there was a dead body in it.
What was a note like that doing on a lantern in the first place?
You've got it all wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. I left that note for myself. It was simply a reminder because I can be very forgetful.
Objection!
What a sorry excuse, Miss Wyatt. The prosecution contends that this note shows one facet of the defendant's murderous plan. And you, Mr. Butz, you played right into Miss Wyatt's hands.
No way, Edgy. I don't believe it.
Objection!
Do you still really believe Miss Wyatt to be the culprit, Mr. Edgeworth?
Of course. My stance on the matter remains unchanged. If you think I'm wrong, then prove it with your cross-examination.
Gladly.
Very well. Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness.
Welp,
Here we go.
it's just like Nick said. I'm the one who moved the lantern. I was poking around the reception hall before the main event and saw a lantern was broken. There was a note on it that said, exchange with the one in the hold, Ellen. So I decided to do Ellie a favor.
Hold it!
Why?
Nobody saw you the whole time when you were switching the lanterns? Nope, I didn't get caught. Not that time anyway.
Not that time.
Yeah, when I tried to sneak into the reception hall the first time. I didn't have as much luck. Those Sprocket guys spotted me and nabbed me. All of my words are failing me right now. Pretty exciting, don't you think? Larry, you need help. And then they locked me up in one of the cabins. Nick, what are you asking about stuff like this for anyway? Shouldn't you be trying to prove Ellie's innocence? Well, is that statement of his important to the case? Yes. Mr. Butz trying to crash the reception and subsequently getting locked up in a cavern. I believe these might be important facts in this case, Your Honor.
Very well. Mr. Butz, please add that statement in your testimony.
I tried to sneak into the reception hall, but I got caught and locked up in a cabin.
Oh yeah, gotta press it.
Hold it!
Sorry? So you got locked up? Then what happened? I broke out. Then I started looking for Ellie and wandered into the reception hall again. That's when I saw the broken lantern and replaced it.
Even after they caught you and locked you up, you still went looking for Miss Wyatt? But hold on a minute.
What is it, Nick? Maya, doesn't something seem weird to you? Larry is saying he replaced the lantern after he broke out of the cabin. That's right. Oh, wait, huh? You're right. It doesn't make much sense, does it?
Mr. Wright, have you found an inconsistency in the witness's statement?
Yes, I believe so, Your Honor. Mr. Butz moved the lantern after he broke out of the cabin, but that contradicts with this, the broken lantern.
Take that!
Is that?
Yes, it's the broken lantern, Your Honor. Mr. Butz, what you're saying doesn't make any sense at all. What? Why not? You swapped the lanterns before the reception began, right? Yeah, that's what I said, isn't it? But you also just said that you swapped the lanterns. after you got locked up in a cabin for trying to sneak into the reception. In other words, you're saying you swapped the lanterns both before the reception and after the reception took place.
That certainly doesn't make any sense, does it? Mr. Butz, did you swap the lanterns before or after the reception? Which was it? Before or after? There's a world of difference between the two.
Well, Mr. Butz, I guess I can't expect guys like you to understand. In a nutshell, it was both before and after the reception. What? I tried to sneak into the first reception and got locked up. The first reception?
Uh-oh. I don't like where this is going.
Then, through the power of Ellie's pendant, time got rewound and we went back to the time before the reception. It was after that when I replaced the lantern. So it was both before the reception and after the reception. Get it? We went back in time to before the reception. So of course the reception would take place one more time after that, right? That's why what I said makes perfect sense.
Mr. Wright, what in the world is the witness talking about? Has he developed some sort of intellectual ailment I'm not aware of since I saw him last?
Well, none of the sprockets seem to remember the time skip, but I do. And Ellie remembers it too. I think the power of our love for each other made that miracle happen.
Mr. Wright, I'm sorry, but could you please translate this man's gibberish so the rest of us can understand?
So now I have to be the one to explain about the whole time travel thing? Go on, Nick. I know you can do it. Looks like you don't have much choice, Nick.
To heck with it. I can't lose any more of my dignity today anyway.
The defendant, Miss Ellen Wyatt, has told the defense the following strange story. She said that after the reception ended, she was attacked by Mr. Gloomsbury. She claims that as she was being assaulted, she made a wish upon her pendant. Please, take me back to that blissful moment. In doing so, time apparently rewound itself to just before the reception began.
It what?
I know it's hard to believe, but think about it this way. Through the power of the pendant, both Ellen Wyatt and Larry Butz experienced time travel.
What? Didn't see this coming.
Objection!
What absolute rubbish. Mr. Wright, I've heard my fair share of your nonsense over the years, but this takes the cake. Have you thoroughly lost your mind?
Objection!
But this is simply the conclusion I came to, using that logic ability you love so much.
What?
The truth of the matter is, the future president of Sprocket Aviation, Soren Sprocket, has been researching time machines. So what if a time machine has already been successfully created? And what if that's one of Sprocket Aviation's top secret inventions?
A time machine?
Yeah, I even saw something when we were time traveling. I saw a pterodactyl flying through the sky. Maybe the airship was set to travel through time for their honeymoon trip.
What? A pterodactyl?
Objection!
You can't possibly have any evidence to back up your ridiculous time travel story.
Well,
As I thought. In any case, I now have the evidence to prove that you're no more intelligent than Larry.
Not so fast now, Edgy. I'm not the same old Larry you used to know.
Oh?
You want evidence? I've got your evidence right here. This is a photo I secretly took at the first reception.
What?
What?
Both of them are shot. No wonder.
Larry, I can't believe you. Well, anyway, good job. If we compare the photos of the first and second reception and can find a difference, then we'll be able to prove that the reception was held twice.
But do you really think such a difference exists?
Yes, Your Honor. I just need some time to find it for you.
This is preposterous! Very well. Please show the court what's different then.
This is proof positive the wedding reception was held twice.
The red bouquet.
Take that!
Please direct your attention to Miss Wyatt's bouquet of flowers. In the photo of one her in-laws took, the defendant is holding a yellow bouquet. But in the photo Mr. Butz took, she's holding a red bouquet.
You're right.
That's impossible. What does this mean?
It means that the defendant really did experience 2 wedding receptions, and she did that when she traveled back through time.
What?
Nick, you did it. You proved Alan's time travel story to be true.
Yeah, I can hardly believe it myself. It's just as Ellen said, the reception was held twice. This turns every assumption we base this trial on upside down.
Objection!
What is it now, Edgy? I refuse to accept such a ludicrous argument. It is pure fiction under the guise of pseudoscience at best. There is simply no such thing as time travel. I know it's hard, but can't you suspend your disbelief for 1 nanosecond, Edgeworth?
I bet sci-fi movies push all your buttons the wrong way, don't they, Mr. Edgeworth? I can totally picture you yelling, "That never happened," every 5 seconds at the screen. Maybe you should stay away from movie dates altogether.
That's neither here nor there. This is real life we're talking about. But the proof is clearly shown in the 2 photographs.
That's right, Mr. Edgeworth. No matter how inexplicable...
Fine. I'll entertain your absurd delusion, if only to demolish it before your very eyes.
What? Let's start with this then, shall we? There is one thing your time travel theory fails to explain. And that is the memories of the other guests there. The defendant and Larry remember the reception occurring twice, but no member of the Sprocket family has even mentioned such a thing. That's because the time machine is classified techno... Come on. I'm not done, you bird brain. Bird brain? As I was saying, if the entire family had been sworn to secrecy, then why hadn't they sworn the woman who was marrying into the family to secrecy too? That's a good point. Honestly, all it takes is a little common sense, Mr. Wright. Even still, how do we know that the trip through time did not really occur? There is proof in the photos that it did. And besides, if time travel doesn't exist, well, I'd be a little disappointed, frankly. I was hoping to go back to the days of my youth. You mustn't allow yourself to be taken in by Mr. Wright's whimsical tales, Your Honor. I've read about it in various literature, you see. And they all say that time travel is just not logically feasible.
Maybe our argument was just a little too nonsensical, Nick.
Well, in that case, why don't we put common sense to the test?
Excuse me?
The wedding reception was held twice. The photos are proof of that. But it wasn't because of time travel. It's simply because the reception had actually been held twice. Isn't that the most reasonable way to interpret the situation?
Would you care to elaborate, Mr. Wright?
If time travel doesn't exist, then there's only one way to make sense of what happened. Somebody must have orchestrated this strange phenomenon, and that somebody is everyone at the reception. What if all the guests at the reception conspired together to hold the reception twice and keep quiet about it?
What?
And for what purpose would they conspire to do such a thing? Well, a brilliant deduction, defense. I can tell you are not a renowned lawyer for nothing. I must say, I underestimated you. How so, Mr. Nakati? You have managed to name each event precisely as they happened. You have revealed it all to the light of day. Then that means it was us. We orchestrated the whole thing. Yes, the reception was held twice, but not because of time travel, no. We simply held it a second time.
What? Why? Why would you do such a thing?
to make it as though the murder Miss Ellen committed never happened. Master Soren figured that if Miss Ellen, who killed Bloomsbury after the first reception, experienced the reception one more time, she would think it was all a dream. It was he who ordered us to make it happen. However, only a few, myself included, knew of Miss Ellen's crime. Are you saying most of the guests attended 2 receptions without knowing why? Indeed, they needed no reason. Master Soren told them to do it, and do it they did. That is the Sprocket way. Then who hid the body in the lantern? We did, but we did not anticipate the pedals finding their way in, nor the actions of Mr. Butz. And that's how you intended to cover the whole situation up? There is just one thing everyone here is wrong. The real scene of the murder was not the hold, it was the Vista deck. What? Then Miss Wyatt's recollection of the events must be correct. I admit we tried to cover this incident up, but the fact that Miss Ellen killed Bloomsbury is undeniable. This is quite a turn of events. And so it appears we have arrived at the truth at last. Now. Please do feel free to travel back in time, Mr. Wright, and attempt to do this trial over again. Go on. Let's not get hasty, Edgeworth. I bet you can't do it. I bet I can't either. Your Honor, we will have to hold a separate trial for the cover-up conspiracy later. But as far as this case goes, I believe we are ready for your ruling.
Objection!
Just before the defendant lost consciousness during her attack, she says she saw someone strike the victim. It's possible that this third party is the true culprit.
Objection!
You still want us to believe the defendant's words? Perhaps you've lost more than your touch during your time abroad. This third person nonsense is nothing but rubbish, and you know it.
Objection!
But by the same token, how can we trust those who conspired and lied to fool this court of law? For all we know, they might still be hiding something. You never know when to quit, do you? Now, calm down, both of you. In any case, there isn't enough trustworthy information yet for me to render a verdict. I suggest we continue this trial after both sides have investigated the matter further. Very well, Your Honor. Phew, that was close. Mr. Nicati, as for you and your cohort's attempt to cover up this crime, your case will be brought to a separate trial following the resolution of this current one. Understood, Your Honor. Well then, this concludes today's trial. Court is adjourned. This case has been a thrill ride all throughout. Thankfully, it's one part this time, so you guys get what you got. We'll be continuing in the next. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to hit the like button. It means a lot. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell. I'll see you then. This is MegamanNG signing off. Peace out. Product provided by Capcom.